Hello, you mighty fine people, and welcome back to the channel. The testing grounds have concluded for both the Lawbringer rework and Nuxia's trap adjustments, and while the big man himself is the biggest point of contention and discussion, I'd like to talk about Nuxia first and save the fan favourite for another video. The testing grounds had a very clear goal of trying to make Nuxia's traps more reliable and viable before deciding to go with a more typical style of rework, which is admirable and the correct decision. However, I think that only adjusting the traps may have harmed the potential results gained from this batch of testing. The changes, put simply, were that Nuxia's traps activate 100 milliseconds later than they did on live. This, in theory, puts them into the range of unreactability, which admittedly is part of the problem that traps face, but that change alone isn't enough to make opponents fighting Nuxia engage with the trap mechanic. Light and zone attack interrupts, parrying on light timing, dodging, and of course emoting are all ways in which the trap can be circumvented, alongside the intended method of simply moving your guard away from the trap direction. And naturally this is where the core issue lies. Nuxia can be countered quite easily and consistently even by accident. She's quite uncommon in matchmaking to the point that even during a testing grounds featuring her, I barely saw her maybe 5 or 6 times in over 50 games, not including the ones that I played as her. She's not threatening with her kit, even though by design she's supposed to counter the natural instincts and muscle memory you as a player have built up by fighting literally every other hero on the roster. So the question is, did the testing grounds help make the traps more usable? Honestly, for me, no. And not because players could react to them, because in my experience they couldn't. It's because the myriad of other counter options available beat the trap once I decided to throw it out. I think that the reaction window being smaller is helpful and needed, though I did find that superior light attacks were less consistent to trap, though I'm not sure if that is the case or just some oddities that occurred during my games. The traps should be the focus for Nuxia. It's a wholly unique mechanic, and the more of those we have in the game, the better. How many players would advocate to remove Blackbriar's Bulwark Flip if the hero struggled as much as Nuxia does? Unique mechanics help make the hero fun, and while I don't really like the argument of identity when it comes to game balance, I do like it when making a hero appealing for a player to select and enjoy playing. Which is why I believe the right thing to do is have another batch of testing grounds for Nuxia with some additions to her kit to help make her traps more functional by addressing some of the counterplay that they have. Now, I'm not going to claim any of my suggestions are balanced because I don't know if they will be. I can see some positive and negative aspects rising from them, but this is why she needs another round of testing, so that these potential exploits and downsides can be found. Anyhow, before I list the changes, let's set out the goals of this rework suggestion. First, to retain the trap mechanic as a focus for Nuxia. Second, to limit trap counterplay by expanding Nuxia's options offensively and defensively. And third, explore options for a zone attack rework or repurpose. So to start with the first point, let's go ahead with the original change the first batch of testing grounds implemented by moving the trap window a little later. I don't think that change was enough on its own to get the necessary data needed to ascertain how successful traps are compared to the live game, but with these additional suggestions, traps should yield more results. Change. Top and side heavy opener to have hit stun properties changed from medium to high. Reason. Guard breaks and light parries yield a heavy opener. The added hit stun will extend the recovery time of the opponent on hit, which in turn will make Nuxia's chain heavies and traps harder to counter. This incentivizes Nuxia to attempt to trap. This change also will bolster her 400 milliseconds chain lights, making them easier to land, but by opting for a chain light instead, will sacrifice the hit stun bonus and give her opponents an easier opportunity to reset back to neutral with a block or parry. Change. Chain and finisher heavies to gain the undodgeable property. Reason. Dodge attacking blindly at Nuxia will be ill-advised as her heavy attacks will land more frequently if she's allowed to get in chain. This is especially true now that guard is lost on heroes during a dodge. This also increases the chance that the opponent is forced to make a read on a potentially incoming trap. Change. Dodge recovery cancel available on missed traps. Reason. Since the opponent parrying on light timing can put Nuxia at a huge deficit when attempting a trap, this change will allow skilled players to recognize the situation and react accordingly with evasion or a deflect attempt. Skilled opponents can also try to bait dodge attacks from Nuxia this way, or counter an incoming follow-up, since buffering an attack input after the trap will prevent the recovery cancel. This makes this potentially powerful change entirely based on skill and experience with reading your opponents, as opposed to a get out of jail free card for a missed trap. Change. New zone attack animation and properties. Trap removed from zone attack no longer available mid-chain. Hook swords are fascinating, and with new animations being motion captured and added to the game, this is a perfect opportunity to give Nuxia some more love. Nuxia would need a zone attack that behaves similar to that of Aramusha, where the attack comes in two parts, with the first part hitting at 500 milliseconds and the second part having the unblockable property. In terms of animation, there are plenty of techniques that could be used if researched and mocapped effectively. Ideally, the animation should appear graceful to complement the weapon style and Nuxia herself. In fact, Aramusha's zone attack would work well as an animation starting point, though ideally I'd prefer something new. I'm just using Aramusha as a reference point for explanation. Zone attack can be feinted before the second part, and zone attack can be chained on hit or miss. The zone attack hitbox should have good horizontal coverage. Reason. A new zone attack would help Nuxia in a number of ways. Her neutral is pretty much dependent on a successful defensive play, or her getting a heavy attack out to be either blocked, landed, or turned into a trap, as her neutral 500 milliseconds lights are not reliable openers. A zone attack that behaves this way will give her traditional unblockable pressure, with chaining options as well as a way to potentially land guard breaks, since her kit typically doesn't favour them as an offensive option. This new zone attack will also give her better mid lane clear, and the better hitboxes alongside unblockable property can help her more in teamfights even if only minimally. Lastly, Nuxia's old zone attack leaves her quite vulnerable during her startup from neutral, so this change will help alleviate that issue and allow her more chance to damage and pressure her opponents. Change. Jade Ballet. New move with backwards movement plus guard break input. Neutral 900 milliseconds bash. Unfeintable. Cannot chain and whiff. Pin duration same as live. Damage 20. Interrupted by enemies and allies alike. Nuxia's old zone attack isn't going to be thrown away. Instead, it can be repurposed into a bash that when successfully connecting with an opponent puts them into the trap where they are knocked to the ground and pinned. Reason. Nuxia will now have a dedicated ganking move with this repurposed attack. 900 milliseconds allows this move to be confirmed on light parries, and potentially a wall splat from guard break or heavy finisher, though recovery values may prevent this. This is essentially Nuxia's version of Shigoki's Demon's Embrace, and will help her be a more valuable teammate, able to set up and execute ganks. It requires thoughtful execution of when to safely use the move, and incentivizes proper team play. While the attack will still be usable in 1v1 as a confirmed punish, it will always be more beneficial to use it opener heavy in those same punish situations, giving the move the correct value as a ganking tool and a way to stall out an opponent's revenge should you be able to land it in those conditions. Other changes. Traps, heavies, and zone attack damage to be adjusted as necessary given the frequency of success rate expected with this increase in strength. The feats Deadly Duet and Caltrops to be looked at. Reason. Deadly Duet is a straight up damage buff. If Nuxia's overall damage is likely to come down, this may need a buff since its activation is conditional on a 1v1 fight taking place in a 4v4 mode. There needs to be incentive to take this over Bounty Hunter. Caltrops is a very strong feat and balancing it might not be easy. A longer cooldown will be warranted at maybe 75 seconds as a test benchmark. The trouble comes in its application against enemy soldiers. I'm not sure if it can be coded so that AI-controlled soldiers or pikemen cannot be killed by Caltrops but still damaged. This would retain its value in Breach against pikemen and still slow or stop the advance of soldiers in Dominion without allowing Nuxia a free source of renown and hardpoints. It might be an idea to also code the damage versus heroes as chip or block damage. This would allow it to still damage them, but not allow for a cheap kill at the touch of a button. So, that's a suggestion for a new set of changes for Nuxia. This is a unique hero, and one that deserves some TLC, and I think that with another round of testing, with these changes or something else similar, she can be a decently balanced and fun hero, albeit a little more challenging to play. She will still be more 1v1 focused, but possess the necessary tools to contribute in 4v4 as a ganker, and her Caltrops acting more as controlling space in the battle, rather than free points, with a nerf to them both significant enough to warrant consideration to her other tier 2 feat choices, but still powerful enough to feel confident taking the Caltrops into a game. With all that said, that concludes the video. If you have any suggestions for how you would rework Nuxia or add to her kit, let me know in the comments section. I'm happy to discuss any and all things For Honor. Do you agree with my changes? Or do I have no clue what I'm talking about? Let me know, all feedback is welcome, and should you feel inclined to agree, then please share this video. The more traction it gets, the more likely it is to reach the right people who can make the changes a reality. With that, I have said enough. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, like and subscribe, you all know how YouTube works. And I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.